Daniel Wright stared at the emergency alert flashing on his desk screen. The red letters spelled out a problem he had hoped would never come. A vessel had crashed in the northern sector. Not just any vessel, a vessel. He pressed the communication button. "Lisa, tell me you're seeing this." "Already on my way to the crash site," Lisa Morgan's voice came through the speaker. "Security team is with me. Don't worry, we're being careful." Daniel stood up and grabbed his jacket. 5 years. They had maintained peace with the Empire for 5 years. The ceasefire was fragile, built on a simple rule: stay on your side, we'll stay on ours. No contact, no interference, no exceptions. A crash changed everything. He walked quickly through the colony's main street. Haven's Rest was small, only 3,000 people, all of them hopping for a quiet life far from galactic conflicts. They had chosen this world specifically because it was remote, safe, or so they thought. His communicator buzzed. Lisa's face appeared on the small screen. "Daniel, you need to see this." Her voice sounded different, worried. "What is it? Military vessel?" "No, it's civilian, a transport, and Daniel," she paused, "there are children." His blood went cold. Children. 3 of them, cubs. They're alive but injured. The adults didn't make it. Daniel stopped walking. His mind raced through the implications. Cubs on human territory. Their families would assume the worst. The military would assume an attack. The ceasefire would shatter. "I'm coming to you," he said. "Don't move them yet." 20 minutes later, Daniel stood at the crash site. The transport had hit hard. Metal debris spread across the clearing. Scorch marks blackened the trees. His security team had established a perimeter, weapons ready but not raised. Lisa met him at the edge of the wreckage. "Over here." She led him to a section of the hull that had been torn open. Inside, 3 small forms huddled together in the corner. They were unlike anything most humans had seen up close. There were predators, that much was clear. Sharp claws, powerful limbs, teeth designed for tearing. Their fur was dark, almost black with patches of deep red. But these were children. The largest was maybe 4 feet tall. The smallest barely reached 2 feet. They pressed against each other, eyes wide with fear. "They've been growling at us whenever we get close," Lisa said quietly. "The big one keeps putting herself between us and the little ones." Daniel moved slowly toward the wreckage. The largest cub's eyes locked onto him. She bared her teeth and made a low rumbling sound in her throat. Protective. Scared. "It's okay," Daniel said softly, even though he knew they couldn't understand him. "We're not going to hurt you." "What do we do?" Lisa asked. "The treaty says no interference. We should report this and let the handle it." "They're injured," Daniel said. "Look at the smallest one, she's barely conscious. If we help them and something goes wrong, if one of them dies, they will think we attacked them. We'll have war." Daniel knew she was right. The smart move was to step back, call it in. Let the cum get their young, stick to the rules. But these were children, hurt and alone, their parents dead in the twisted metal around them. "Get a transport ready," Daniel said. "We're taking them to the medical center." "Daniel, I know the risks, but I'm not leaving children at a crash site. I don't care what species they are." Lisa looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll get the transport, but this is on you if it goes bad." "I know." Getting the cubs into the transport was harder than expected. The largest one, the protective sister, wouldn't let anyone near the injured one. She snapped and clawed at anyone who approached. Daniel finally had to get a safety net, moving slowly and talking in calm tones the whole time. "We want to help," he kept saying. "Your sister needs a doctor, please let us help." Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe the cub understood that her sibling was dying. Whatever the reason, she finally backed down enough for them to carefully lift the injured cub onto a medical stretcher. Back at the colony, Dr. Barnes met them at the medical center entrance. His eyes went wide when he saw what they were bringing in. Daniel, are you serious? Can you treat them or not? Looked at the cubs, then back at Daniel. I can try, but I don't know biology. If I make a mistake, do your best, that's all I'm asking. While and his team worked to examine the cubs, Daniel went back to his office. He had calls to make. None of them would be pleasant. The first was to Earth's colonial administration. They were not happy. The second was to the Border Command, as required by treaty. That message would take time to reach them, and their response would take even longer. He had maybe 6 hours before the military knew what happened, maybe 12 before they responded. Lisa came into his office without knocking. You should see this. She pulled up a file on his desk screen. Intelligence reports. They were already moving. A fleet had left their nearest base 3 hours ago, heading toward Haven's Rest. How do they already know? Daniel asked. The transport probably had an emergency beacon. It activated when they crashed. The military was probably tracking them. Daniel calculated distances and speeds in his head. The fleet would arrive in 8 hours. They're coming ready for a fight, Lisa said. Battle formation, weapons charged. They think we did something to that transport. We need to prepare defenses. Against a battle fleet. Daniel, we're a civilian colony. We have security teams, not a military. Then we make sure they understand we're not a threat. Lower our shields when they arrive. Show them we help the cubs. That's assuming they stop to ask questions before they start shooting. Daniel looked at the intelligence report again. The fleet was commanded by someone named, a warrior with a long service record. Lots of battles, lots of victories, not someone known for patience or mercy. Get me everything we have on Commander, Daniel said. If I'm going to convince him we're not his enemy, I need to know who I'm dealing with. Called an hour later. You need to come to the medical center, now. Daniel ran. When he arrived, was standing outside one of the treatment rooms. His face was pale. The smallest one has internal bleeding. Serious. She needs surgery or she'll die in the next few hours. Can you do it? I don't know, I'm not a doctor. If I operate and something goes wrong, if she dies on my table. Didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. If the cub died, they would blame them, would believe they killed her. The fleet coming toward them wouldn't stop to negotiate. Daniel looked through the window into the treatment room. The 3 cubs were together on a large bed. The 2 healthy ones stayed close to their injured sister, touching her gently with their paws. The protective one looked up at Daniel through the glass. Her eyes were still afraid, but something else was there too. Hope. She hoped the humans could help. Do the surgery, Daniel said. Save her if you can. Nodded slowly. All right, but Daniel, if this goes wrong. I know, they will destroy us, but if we let her die without trying, we deserve whatever they do to us. As prepared for surgery, Daniel returned to his office. He had 8 hours before the fleet arrived. 8 hours to figure out how to explain to an angry warrior that humans had tried to help, not harm. 8 hours to prevent a war. He opened a new file and began writing. A message to, an explanation, a plea for understanding. He had no idea if it would work, but he had to try, because somewhere in his medical center, 3 cubs were counting on humans to save them. And Daniel Wright refused to let children down, no matter what it cost him. Barnes had performed hundreds of surgeries in his career. Humans, mostly. A few alien species he had studied in medical school, but never a species that the galaxy knew as one of the most dangerous predators in known space. He looked at the small form on his operating table. The cub was so young. Despite the claws and teeth, despite the predatory features, she looked vulnerable, fragile. Readings are stable, his assistant said. Anesthesia is working. Good, let's begin. Made the first careful incision. He had studied every medical file on biology he could find in the last hour. It wasn't much. They didn't share medical information with other species. Outside the operating room, Daniel sat with the two other cubs. They had become agitated when took their sister away. The larger one, the protective sister, had tried to follow. She had growled and snapped until Daniel had done something that surprised even himself. He sat down on the floor next to them, not approaching, not touching, just being there. "Your sister is going to be okay," he said quietly. "The doctor is helping her." The cubs couldn't understand his words, but maybe they understood his tone. The protective one stopped growling. She watched him with those sharp, intelligent eyes. Minutes passed, then an hour. Daniel kept talking, his voice low and calm. He told them about Haven's Rest, about Earth, about anything he could think of. The sound seemed to help. The cubs slowly relaxed. Lisa came in at one point. "Any word?" "Still in surgery. How's the situation outside?" "The fleet will be here in 6 hours. I've ordered all non-essential personnel to the shelters, just in case." "Good." Lisa looked at the cubs, then at Daniel sitting on the floor with them. "You know this is crazy, right?" "Probably. If the surgery fails, those cubs will blame us. If it succeeds but doesn't believe we helped, he'll attack anyway. We can't win." "Maybe, but we did the right thing. Sometimes that has to be enough." Lisa shook her head but didn't argue further. She left to coordinate the colony's limited defenses. Daniel continued his one-sided conversation with the cubs. The middle one, the curious one, slowly moved closer. She sniffed the air around Daniel, trying to understand what he was. "I'm human," Daniel said. "I know we probably look strange to you. You look pretty strange to us too, if I'm being honest." The cub tilted her head. Then carefully she touched his hand with one paw. Her claws were retracted. The touch was gentle, exploring. "See, not so scary, are we?" The protective sister watched this interaction closely. Daniel could see her mind working. These humans had her injured sister. They could be dangerous, but they hadn't hurt them yet. They had given them a comfortable place. They spoke in calm voices. She was trying to decide if humans could be trusted. 3 hours into the surgery called. "We have a problem." Daniel's heart sank. "What kind of problem?" "Her body is rejecting the synthetic blood substitute. It's not compatible with her biology. Without it, I can't complete the surgery. She'll bleed out." "What do you need?" "Blood, or something very close to it. And I need it in the next 30 minutes. Daniel looked at the two cubs beside him. Could he ask them? They were children. The protective one was maybe young enough to be equivalent to a human teenager, the curious one even younger. But their sister was dying. "I'll try something," Daniel said. "Keep her stable as long as you can." He ended the call and looked at the protective cub. She stared back at him, those predator eyes sharp and aware. "I need your help," Daniel said. He pointed to the operating room, then to the cub, then back to the room. He had no idea if she would understand. The cub watched his gestures. She made a low sound, almost a question. Daniel tried again. He pulled up an image on his tablet, a simple medical diagram he modified to show what he needed. Blood donation. Simple, direct. The protective cub looked at the image. Then she stood up. She walked to the operating room door and looked back at Daniel. She understood. Was skeptical when Daniel brought the cub into the surgical prep area. "Daniel, she's a child. We can't." She volunteered. "Look at her. She knows her sister needs help." The cub stood calmly while prepared to draw blood. She didn't flinch when the needle went in. She watched the red liquid fill the collection bag with what Daniel could only describe as determination. "That's enough," said after a moment. "Thank you." He said it to the cub, even though she couldn't understand the words. But maybe she understood the gratitude in his voice. She touched his hand briefly with her paw, claws retracted, then walked back to her younger sibling in the waiting area. Returned to surgery with the donated blood. Daniel sat with the cubs again, his heart pounding. Everything depended on the next hour. The protective cub lay down next to Daniel, not touching him but closer than before. She was tired from the blood donation, worried about her sister, and for some reason she seemed to find Daniel's presence comforting. "She's going to make it," Daniel said. "Your sister is strong and is a good doctor." Time crawled. Daniel checked his watch every few minutes. The fleet was getting closer, 4 hours away now, then 3. Finally emerged from the operating room. His surgical mask was down. He looked exhausted, but he was smiling. "She's stable. The surgery was successful. She'll need time to recover, but she's going to live." Daniel felt relief wash over him. The two cubs seemed to sense the change in his mood. They stood up, looking at with what Daniel interpreted as hope. "Can they see her?" Daniel asked. "Give us a few minutes to move her to recovery, then yes." When the cubs were reunited with their sister, Daniel watched through the observation window. The injured cub was weak, barely conscious, but alive. Her sisters pressed close to her, making soft sounds. The protective one licked her sister's face gently. "They have families who love them," Lisa said, appearing beside Daniel. "They aren't just mindless predators. No, they're people, different from us but still people." "We'll see it that way." "I don't know, but he's about to find out what humans do when we find children in trouble." 2 hours before the fleet's arrival, Daniel sent his message to. He explained everything: the crash, the rescue, the surgery. He included medical records, video footage, everything that proved they had helped the cubs. He ended the message with a simple request: "Come down and see for yourself. See that your cubs are safe. See that humans mean them no harm. Then decide what happens next." Lisa prepared the colony's defenses, limited as they were. Shields were lowered as planned, showing they weren't preparing to fight. But weapons were ready just in case. If attacked, they would defend themselves, even knowing it was hopeless against a battle fleet. When the fleet arrived in orbit, it did so with overwhelming force. 10 warships, enough firepower to reduce the colony to ash in minutes. Daniel stood in the communication center, watching the tactical display. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. A message came through, audio only. The voice was deep, growling, barely understandable through the translation software. "This is Commander of the Empire. You have cubs belonging to prominent families. Return them immediately." Daniel opened the channel. "Commander, I'm Daniel Wright, Administrator of Haven's Rest Colony. The cubs are safe. They're recovering from injuries sustained in the crash. I'd like to invite you to come down and see them yourself." A long pause. Then, "You dare invite me to your colony. You hold our cubs hostage and ask me to walk into your territory." "Not hostage, guests, patients. They're children who needed medical help. We gave it to them, that's all. If you have harmed them, human, your entire colony will burn." "I understand. That's why I want you to see them, see that they're safe and healing. Then you can decide for yourself what we intended." Another pause, longer this time. Daniel could imagine the commander discussing this with his officers, weighing the risks, deciding if this was a trap. "Finally, I will come to the surface. Alone. If this is deception, human, your species will regret it." "No deception. Just children who need to go home to their families. Come to the medical center. I'll meet you there." The communication ended. Lisa looked at Daniel with concern. "Alone is coming alone." He said alone, but I doubt he'll really be alone. He'll have ships in orbit ready to strike if something goes wrong. And if he decides we're lying, if he thinks we hurt those cubs despite the evidence. Daniel looked at the medical center on the security feed. The 3 cubs were together, resting. The injured one was awake now, weak but alive. "Then we'll deal with it, but I have to believe that a warrior will recognize truth when he sees it, and the truth is simple. We help children who needed help. Nothing more, nothing less." "I hope you're right," Lisa said, "because if you're wrong, we have 30 minutes to live." Transport touched down at the colony's landing pad with mechanical precision. Engineering was impressive, Daniel had to admit. The ship was sleek and dangerous looking, even when it wasn't firing weapons. The ramp lowered. 4 warriors emerged, weapons visible but not drawn. They moved like soldiers, scanning for threats. Then came. Daniel understood immediately why this warrior commanded a fleet. Was larger than the other, battle scars marking his dark fur. His eyes were sharp and intelligent. He moved with the confidence of someone who had survived 1,000 fights. But it was more than that. There was weight to him, presence. This was a warrior who had killed and commanded death, and everyone around him knew it. Daniel stood at the medical center entrance, alone and unarmed as promised. Lisa and her security team waited inside, out of sight but ready. Approached slowly. His clawed feet made clicking sounds on the pavement. He stopped 10 feet away, studying Daniel with those predator eyes. "You are Daniel, right?" "I am. Welcome to Haven's Rest, Commander." "I am not here for welcomes. Where are the cubs?" "Inside, this way." Daniel turned his back on and walked toward the entrance. It was a calculated risk, showing trust, showing he wasn't afraid, or at least showing he was willing to act like he wasn't afraid even if his heart was pounding. He heard follow the warrior's claws clicking behind him. The other warriors spread out, maintaining a perimeter. One stayed close to, hand near his weapon. "That's Captain Greg Turner," said, noticing Daniel's glance. "My second in command. He believes this is a trap." "It's not, you'll see." They entered the medical center. Was waiting in the hallway, trying to look calm and mostly succeeding. He nodded to Daniel, then too. "Commander, I'm Dr. Barnes. I performed surgery on one of the cubs. She's recovering well." His eyes narrowed. "You operated on a cub. You have no knowledge of our biology." "I had limited knowledge," admitted. "But the alternative was letting her die. I couldn't do that." "Why not? We are enemies. The cubs of enemies become adult enemies. You could have let her die and eliminated a future threat." Looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because she's a child. Children aren't enemies. They're just children." Stared at him for a long moment, then turned to Daniel. "Show me." Daniel led them to the recovery room. Through the window they could see the 3 cubs. They were together on a large bed, surrounded by soft blankets. Medical monitors beeped quietly. The injured cub was awake, lying between her sisters. His reaction was immediate. He moved to the door, but Daniel held up his hand. "Let me tell them you're here first. They've been through a lot. I don't want to scare them." They do not scare easily. They're children who lost their parents and woke up surrounded by aliens. Trust me, they've been scared." Daniel entered the room slowly. The protective cub looked up immediately. She recognized him now. Her body language changed from defensive to something almost like greeting. "Hey there," Daniel said quietly. "Someone's here to see you, someone from home." He opened the door wider, stepped in, and the cubs reacted instantly. Jumped up, making sounds Daniel hadn't heard before. Happy sounds. The middle cub was right behind her. Even the injured one tried to get up. Knelt down, and the cubs rushed to him. They pressed against him, touching him with their paws, making their happy sounds. Touched each of them gently, checking them for injuries with a warrior's careful hands. He spoke to them in the language. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Relief, concern, love. Captain Turner had followed them in. He watched the reunion with confusion on his face. "I don't understand. They are unharmed, well cared for. Why?" "Because they needed help," Daniel said simply. "But you are prey species. Humans are weak. The cubs are predators. When they grow, they will be your enemies. Why save future enemies?" Daniel thought about how to answer that. How to explain human thinking to someone from a culture so different from his own. "We have a saying on Earth. We judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable. Children are vulnerable, all children. It doesn't matter if they're human or any other species. When we see a child in trouble, we help. It's that simple. Nothing is that simple, Turner said. Stood up. The cubs stayed close to him, but they also kept looking at Daniel and, especially, she moved between and the humans like she wanted to keep both groups together. The small one said, "Tell me what you did." Explained the surgery in detail. The injuries, the complications, the blood donation from the hours of careful work. Listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When finished, was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that surprised everyone. "You risked your colony for them. If had died during your surgery, I would have assumed you killed her. My fleet would have destroyed this place. You knew this, yes?" "Yes," Daniel said. "Yet you operated anyway." "The alternative was watching a child die. I couldn't accept that." Looked at him with something that might have been respect or confusion, maybe both. "I do not understand you, Daniel Wright. You are prey. Prey runs from predators. Prey hides. Prey does not save predator cubs. Maybe we're not as much like prey as you think." A sound at the door made them all turn. A group of people stood in the hallway. Human children, maybe 10 of them, with an older woman who Daniel recognized as Rachel Moore, one of the colony's teachers. "Sorry to interrupt," Rachel said, but the children heard the cubs were awake. They wanted to bring something. The human children came into the room shyly. They carried drawings and small handmade toys, simple things, the kind of gifts children make for each other. One little girl, maybe 6 years old, approached the cubs carefully. She held out a drawing of what was clearly meant to be a cub, done in bright crayons. "I made this for you," she said too. "I hope you feel better." Looked at the drawing, then at the girl. She reached out carefully, claws retracted, and took the paper. She made a soft sound, almost like a purr. The other children came forward with their gifts. The cubs accepted them, clearly not understanding what these things were but recognizing them as gestures of kindness. Captain Turner watched this with his mouth open. "Your young ones make gifts for predator cubs. Do they not understand the danger?" "They understand the cubs are children just like they are," Rachel said. "That's what matters to them." One of the human boys, braver than the others, asked, "Are you their dad?" Looked down at the child. "No, I am a warrior commander. I came to bring them home." "Will they be okay?" Was really hurt. "Your doctor saved her. She will recover." "That's good, we were worried." The boy looked at the cubs. "They seem nice, not scary like the adults said." "They are children," said slowly, as if the words were new to him. "Perhaps all children are less scary than adults." Rachel gathered the children after a few more minutes. "Let's give the cubs some rest. Maybe we can visit again before they leave." As the humans filed out, Daniel watched's face. The warrior was thinking hard about something, processing what he had seen. "This changes nothing," Captain Turner said firmly. "They helped the cubs, yes, but this does not make them allies. We should take the cubs and leave." "Perhaps," said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Commander," Daniel said, "it's evening. We're having a community gathering tonight, a tradition we have here. I'd like to invite you and your men to join us. See how we live. Then decide what you think of humans." "A gathering for what purpose?" "To be together, to share food and stories, to remember we're all part of a community." Daniel paused. "To remember what we're trying to build here, peace. Not just absence of war, but actual peace." Turner snorted. Warriors do not attend social gatherings with prey species. But was looking at the cubs again. They were playing with the human children's gifts, examining them with curiosity. Held the crayon drawing like it was something precious. "We will attend," said. Turner started to protest, but cut him off. "We will see what humans do when they are not trying to impress us. Then we will decide if their words match their actions." "Thank you," Daniel said. "It starts at sunset. You can bring your men, everyone is welcome." As they left the medical center, Lisa pulled Daniel aside. "Are you sure about this? Having warriors at the gathering?" "No, but I think it's important. Needs to see us as people, not just as prey. The gathering is where we're most ourselves. Or it's where we show weakness, where they see we're not military, that we can't defend ourselves. Maybe, but maybe they also see we're worth not destroying, that we've built something good here, something worth protecting." Lisa shook her head. "I hope you know what you're doing." "So do I," Daniel admitted. "So do I." Daniel's home was simple, 3 rooms, a small kitchen, nothing fancy. But it was comfortable, and right now that was what mattered. His mother, Helen Carter, was cooking when he arrived with. She looked up from the stove, saw the massive warrior standing in her doorway, and smiled. "You must be Commander. Daniel told me you'd be coming. I hope you like stew. I made extra." Stared at her. Daniel could imagine what was going through the warrior's mind. This elderly human woman, barely 5 feet tall, showing no fear of a warrior who could kill her without effort. "Your mother?" asked Daniel. "Yes, she insisted on making dinner when I told her we'd have a guest. She is not afraid." Helen laughed. "Afraid? Son, I raised 3 boys on a frontier colony during the expansion wars. I've seen plenty of things that could kill me. You're big and you've got claws, but you're here as a guest in my boys' home. That means you're getting fed properly, and that's that." She pointed to the table. "Sit, both of you. Food will be ready in a minute." They sat. Daniel watched carefully lower himself into a chair designed for humans. The warrior looked uncomfortable but not hostile, just very, very confused. Helen brought bowls of stew and fresh bread. She served first, which clearly surprised him. "The eldest guest is always served first," she explained. "My grandmother taught me that. I figure it applies regardless of species." Looked at the food. He smelled it carefully, then tasted it. His expression changed slightly. "This is good." "Of course it is. I've been making stew for 60 years. Helen sat down with her own bowl. "Daniel tells me you're here to take the cubs home." "Yes, they have families waiting for them." "I'm sure those families were worried sick. It's good they'll be reunited." She took a bite of bread. "Those cubs are sweet things. Is very protective of her sisters. Reminds me of my Daniel when he was young, always watching out for the other kids." Daniel was a warrior. Soldier, 20 years in the military. He saw things that, well, things that made him want something different. That's why he founded this colony. He wanted to build instead of destroy for a change. Looked at Daniel with new eyes. "You have fought." "Yes, I've seen enough war to last a lifetime. That's why I'm done with it." A warrior who chooses peace. In culture, this is seen as weakness. "Is it?" Daniel asked. "Because I'd say it takes more strength to choose peace than to choose war. War is easy. Peace requires constant work." They ate in silence for a while. Helen kept the conversation light, talking about the colony and its people. She had a way of making everything sound normal, even having dinner with an alien warrior. As the sun began to set, Daniel stood. "The gathering will be starting soon. We should go." "This gathering," said, "what is its purpose?" Helen answered before Daniel could. "Community, connection, remembering we're not alone. Every week we come together and share the evening. It's one of the things that makes this place feel like home." The colony's central square was filling with people when they arrived. A large fire pit dominated the center, already burning bright. Families were setting up blankets and chairs in a circle around it. Children ran around playing while adults talked and laughed. Captain Turner and the other warriors were already there, standing awkwardly at the edge. They looked ready for an attack, weapons within reach. But then Lisa approached them carrying a tray. "We've got food. Not sure what eat, but we've got meat, vegetables, bread, everything. Help yourselves." Turner looked suspicious. "Why do you offer us food?" "Because you're here and it's dinner time. That's how this works." Lisa set the tray on a nearby table. No poison, no tricks, just food. Eat or don't, your choice. The Cubs arrived with and Rachel. They had been cleared to leave the medical center for a few hours, though wanted to keep monitoring. The Cubs looked around at the gathering with wide eyes. Human children saw them and immediately came over, not scared, just curious. They started showing the Cubs how to sit by the fire, how to roast marshmallows on sticks. Was hesitant at first, but the middle cub was bolder. She tried a marshmallow and made a pleased sound. The human kids laughed and showed her how to make it even better by letting it get a little burnt. Watched all of this with Turner beside him. "This is a trick," Turner said quietly. "They want us to lower our guard. Do you see weapons? Do you see defensive positions?" "No, I see a colony that cannot defend itself. Easy prey." "Yet they saved our cubs, risked their lives to save cubs that are not their own," shook his head. "I do not understand these humans." Daniel approached with 2 chairs. "Please sit with us. The storytelling will start soon." Storytelling. It's tradition. We share stories around the fire. History, legends, anything people want to share. Daniel smiled. "You're welcome to share one too if you'd like." They sat, more families arrived. The fire grew brighter as darkness fell. Someone started playing music, a simple guitar melody. Children continued playing, their laughter mixing with the crackling of the fire. Helen stood up when the music ended. "All right, everyone, who wants to start?" An older man shared a story about Earth, about the old days before space travel. Then a younger woman told a funny story about her first day on Haven's Rest. People laughed and applauded. Then Helen stood again. "I'd like to tell a story tonight, one I think our guests might appreciate." She looked at as she spoke. Long ago on Earth there were 2 species, humans and wolves. Wolves were predators, dangerous. They hunted in packs and could kill humans easily. Humans were afraid of wolves, and wolves saw humans as competition for food. The cubs had settled near the fire, drawn by its warmth. Human children sat near them, maintaining a respectful distance but clearly fascinated. Lay between her sisters, watching Helen tell the story. "But something changed," Helen continued. "Some wolves and some humans realized they could help each other. Wolves could track and hunt. Humans could make tools and fire. Together they were stronger." It didn't happen overnight. It took generations, hundreds of years of slowly learning to trust each other. But eventually, wolves became dogs. They lived with humans, protected human families, and humans protected them in return. The ancient enemies became the best of friends. She paused, looking around the fire. "My point is this. Fear and distrust are natural, but they're not inevitable. Any 2 species can choose a different path if they're willing to try." Was very still. Daniel could see the warrior thinking about the story, processing it. "That is a children's tale," Turner said dismissively. "A fantasy." "It's history," Helen said firmly. "I can show you the archaeological evidence if you'd like. It really happened. Predator and prey choosing cooperation over conflict." "We are not Earth wolves," Turner said, "and humans are not the same humans who tamed wolves." "No," Daniel said. "We're different, but the principle is the same. Fear is natural, distrust is natural, but so is the ability to change, to choose something better." A young woman from the colony stood up. "Can I share something?" At Daniel's nod, she continued. "I saw something today that I'll never forget. I saw cubs and human children playing together, not fighting, not scared of each other, just kids being kids. And I thought, if children can do that, why can't adults?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Looked at the cubs again. They had moved closer to the human children. Was touching a human girl's hair gently, fascinated by its texture. The girl giggled and touched fur in return. "Commander," Daniel said quietly, "would you share a story from your culture? I think people would like to hear it." Turner started to object but raised a hand. "I will share." He stood, the firelight reflected off his dark fur and battle scars. He looked every bit the warrior he was, but when he spoke, his voice was softer than before. We have a story, too, about the 3 moons and the first who learned to hunt by their light. He told the tale in the language, and someone quickly set up a translation device so everyone could understand. It was a story of courage and survival, of a young who was too small to hunt with the pack but who learned to use intelligence instead of strength, who became a great leader by thinking differently than others. When he finished, the crowd applauded, looked surprised by this response. "That was beautiful," Rachel said. "Thank you for sharing it." The gathering continued. More stories, more music, food was passed around. The fire burned steady and warm. And slowly, without anyone really noticing when it happened, the warriors relaxed. They accepted food when offered. They listened to the stories. Turner even answered questions from curious colonists about culture. The cubs grew tired. Especially was exhausted from her ordeal. She curled up near the fire and her sisters joined her. Human children settled near them, creating a mixed group of young ones basking in the fire's warmth. Daniel watched them sleep and felt something shift in his chest. This moment, these cubs and children together, this was what peace looked like. Not treaties signed by governments, not military agreements, just people choosing to sit together by a fire. Was watching too. The warrior's expression had changed. The hardness was still there, but something else too, uncertainty, wonder, maybe even hope. "On our world," said quietly, "we would never allow this. Cubs of different packs do not mix, and cubs of different species certainly do not sleep side by side." "Why not?" Daniel asked. "Because it makes them weak. They forget they are predators. They forget the others are prey. Or maybe they remember their children first, and everything else second." Didn't answer. He just stared at the sleeping cubs and children, the firelight dancing across their peaceful faces. Helen came to sit beside them. "Beautiful, isn't it? Makes you think about what's possible." "It makes me question everything I know," admitted. "Good," Helen said. "That means you're thinking, and thinking is the first step to changing." Morning came too quickly. Daniel stood at the landing pad, watching as the warriors prepared their transport for departure. The cubs would be going home, back to their families, back to their lives. It was the right thing, but it felt wrong somehow. Approached him. The warrior had been quiet all morning, lost in thought. "You have given me a problem, Daniel Wright." "What kind of problem?" "I must report to the High Council. I must tell them what happened here, and I do not know what to say." Daniel waited, letting work through his thoughts. "If I tell the truth, they will not believe me. They will say humans manipulated me, that this was all performance to make us lower our guard." Looked toward the medical center where the cubs were saying goodbye to the human children. "But if I lie and say it was a simple rescue with no meaning, I betray what I have seen here." "Then tell the truth," Daniel said. "Let them decide what to believe." The truth could start a different kind of problem. If the High Council thinks I have been compromised, they will send another commander, one who will not hesitate to destroy this colony. I understand the risk, but I'd rather face judgment with truth than safety with lies. Captain Turner joined them. He looked uncomfortable. "Commander, the transport is ready. We should depart." In a moment, turned back to Daniel. "I want to propose something that has never been done between our species." "I'm listening." "An exchange program, cultural observers, who come here to learn about humans, humans who come to our worlds to learn about us." Paused. "It will be controversial, many will oppose it, but after what I have seen, I believe it is necessary." Daniel felt hope surge in his chest. "I agree. Understanding comes from living alongside each other, not just talking across diplomatic tables." "You would send humans to space, knowing the danger." "If it means building real peace, yes." Lisa walked over. She had been listening. I'll go. Daniel turned to her in surprise. What? You heard me. I'll be one of the observers in space. Someone needs to do it and I'm head of security. I can handle myself. Lisa, it could be dangerous. Everything worth doing is dangerous. She looked at. If you're serious about this, I'm volunteering. Studied her with approval. You have the spirit of a warrior. You would be welcome. The Cubs came out of the medical center with and Rachel. They moved slowly, still recovering but much stronger than when they arrived. The human children followed, carrying small bags of gifts for the Cubs to take home. Approached Daniel. She looked up at him with those intelligent eyes, then did something that surprised everyone. She touched his hand with her paw, claws retracted, and made a soft sound. A thank you in whatever way Cubs could express it. You're welcome, Daniel said. Stay safe out there. And said goodbye to and the other humans who had helped them. Even, who had been unconscious for most of their stay, seemed to understand that these humans had saved her life. The Cubs boarded the transport, prepared to follow them but paused. This is not the end, Daniel Wright. I will propose the exchange program to the High Council, and regardless of what they say, I will establish a direct communication channel with you, one that bypasses our diplomatic bureaucracy. Why would you do that? Because I believe what your mother said. Fear and distrust are natural, but they are not inevitable. If two old warriors like us can learn to see past our differences, perhaps there is hope for our species. They clasped hands, human and former enemies, maybe future friends. The transport lifted off, carrying the Cubs back to their families. Daniel watched it disappear into the sky, then turned to Lisa. Are you serious about going to space? Completely. Someone needs to start building those bridges. Might as well be me. Over the next few weeks, Daniel sent detailed reports to Earth's government. He explained everything that happened. The rescue, the surgery, the gatherings, proposal. The response was mixed. Some officials praised his actions. Others said he had taken too great a risk. But in the end, they approved the exchange program on a trial basis. 3 months later, Lisa departed for space. She went with 2 other volunteers, both scientists interested in learning about culture and biology, guaranteed their safety personally. 2 observers came to Haven's Rest. They were younger warriors, less set in their ways. They were cautious at first, but the colony welcomed them. Daniel watched as they learned about human agriculture, about human families, about human children who asked endless questions and showed no fear. One evening, 6 months after the Cubs had left, Daniel received a message. It was from the Cubs are well. They speak of humans with fondness. Has told her family about the humans who saved them. The story is spreading among our people. Some dismiss it as fantasy, but others are curious. They ask questions. They want to know if humans are truly so different from what we believed. Daniel smiled. Change was slow, but it was happening. A year passed. The exchange program expanded. More humans went to worlds. More came to human colonies. Not everywhere, not all at once, but slowly, steadily. Haven's Rest became something unexpected. A meeting ground. A place where humans could interact without the weight of centuries of fear and mistrust. The evening gatherings continued. Now they included observers who sat by the fire and shared stories from their culture. Human children grew up seeing as neighbors rather than monsters. Daniel stood in the central square one evening, watching the fire burn bright. The 2 observers were teaching human children a traditional game. Laughter filled the air, both human and. Lisa sent regular messages from space. She was thriving there, learning the language, making connections. She had even been invited to attend a military ceremony, an honor rarely given to non. Helen joined Daniel by the fire. You did good, son. We got lucky. If had been a different kind of warrior, this could have ended very differently. Maybe, but you gave him the chance to be different. That's what mattered. Ambassador arrived from Earth that week. She was there to assess the exchange program and write a report for the government. Daniel gave her a tour of the colony. He showed her the observers working alongside humans, the mixed classes where children learned both languages, the shared meals and celebrations. "It's remarkable," said. "I've read the reports, but seeing it in person is different." "It's not perfect," Daniel admitted. "We still have problems, cultural misunderstandings, arguments, but we work through them." "How?" "By remembering we're all people. That's the secret, really. Once you see someone as a person, not as a representative of their species, everything else gets easier." Attended that week's gathering. She watched humans and sit together around the fire, watched children play together, watched adults share food and stories. Arrived the next day. He came in a small personal transport, not a battle cruiser. He came as a guest, not a warrior. Daniel met him at the landing pad. "Welcome back, Commander." We are past military titles now, I think." They walked to Daniel's home. Helen had dinner waiting, and she greeted like an old friend. "Good to see you again. I hope you're hungry." They ate and talked, shared news from space. The High Council was slowly accepting the exchange program. Some still opposed it, but the voices supporting it grew stronger every day. "The Cubs helped," said. "Their families speak well of humans. Other families want to know more. Curiosity is spreading." "That's good," Daniel said. "There is more. The Cubs want to return here, to visit. Their families are considering allowing it." Daniel felt his heart lift. They'd be welcome any time. That evening they went to the gathering together. More observers had arrived, bringing the total to 5. They sat around the fire with 30 humans, sharing the space comfortably. A child asked to tell the story of the 3 moons again. He did, and the children listened with rapt attention. Then a human father told a story from Earth. Then an observer shared a tale from her childhood. The fire burned. The stars came out. Children grew sleepy and curled up near the fire's warmth, human and together just as they had been a year ago. Ambassador sat beside Daniel. "I'm going to recommend full approval of the exchange program, and I'm going to suggest we expand it to other colonies." "You think it will work elsewhere?" "If it can work here, it can work anywhere." She looked at the mixed group around the fire. "You started something important, Daniel, a new way forward." "We just helped some children. Everything else grew from that." Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. Join them. I have news. The High Council has approved something unprecedented. They want to establish a permanent embassy here, on Haven's Rest. Daniel stared at him. "An embassy here?" "You have proven this colony can be a place of peace, a neutral ground. They want to build on that." Smiled, a strange expression on his predator face. "You will have many more visitors soon." "We'll make room. We'll make it work." As the evening wound down, children were carried to bed. Adults lingered, talking quietly. The fire burned low but steady. Daniel thought about how it all started. A crashed ship, 3 frightened cubs, a choice to help despite the risks. Such a simple decision, such profound consequences. Helen came to say goodnight. She hugged Daniel, then surprised by hugging him too. The warrior accepted it awkwardly but not unkindly. "You two started something beautiful," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you different." After she left Daniel and stood together by the dying fire. Around them the colony slept, human and sharing the same ground, breathing the same air. "Do you remember when you first came here?" Daniel asked. "You came ready for war." "I remember. I thought humans were weak, deceitful, dangerous in their weakness. And now? Now I think humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but not in the way I thought." Looked at the fire. "You are dangerous because you believe impossible things can become real. You look at enemies and see potential friends. You risk everything for children who are not your own. This kind of thinking is more powerful than any weapon. Is that a compliment? It is an observation, but yes, also a compliment. Put his hand on Daniel's shoulder, a gesture of respect. Thank you for showing me a different way. Thank you for saving our cubs. Thank you for having the courage to welcome an enemy into your home. Thank you for having the courage to accept that welcome. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the embers glow. Somewhere in the colony, human children and cubs slept peacefully. Beside fires in homes across Haven's Rest, new friendships were forming. A different future was being built. Not through treaties signed by diplomats, not through military agreements, but through simple acts of kindness, through choosing compassion over fear, through protecting children, all children regardless of species. The fire burned down to glowing coals. Daniel and finally said goodnight and went their separate ways, but they would meet again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Because peace, real peace, was not a destination. It was a choice made every day. A choice to see others as people. A choice to build instead of destroy. A choice to protect the vulnerable and welcome the stranger. Beside the fire, cubs had slept, human and together, and in that simple image was the seed of everything that followed. A new way forward, a new hope for the galaxy. The story of Haven's Rest would spread. Other colonies would try the same approach. Not all would succeed, but enough would. Enough to change the tide. Enough to prove that enemies could become friends. That predator and prey could find peace. All because one man chose to save 3 children who needed help. All because one warrior chose to question everything he believed. All because people on both sides dared to imagine something better. The fire was out now, but its warmth lingered, and tomorrow it would be lit again.